seats and slick dashboard of a Mercedes-Benz, the sleek exterior of the Toyota Prado, the best comfort money can buy, and for parliamentarians, it comes tax-free. Parliamentarians have collectively saved millions in taxes on their personal luxury vehicles thanks to exemptions. Yet the government is clamping down on others who used legitimate tax breaks to do the same.
Individuals have taken advantage of the tax waivers on hybrids to import luxury vehicles. This has caused a significant leakage of tax revenue.
And government is raising taxes on certain cars
to encourage the use of smaller, more fuel-efficient vehicles and to reduce the loss of foreign exchange from motor vehicle imports. I propose to increase by 25% the motor vehicle tax and customs duty on private passenger vehicles with engine sizes exceeding 1599 cc's and not exceeding 1999 cc's.
The head of the Foreign Used Car Dealers Association says that tax will raise prices on cars working people can afford.
Like they would buy like a Nissan Serena, like a X-Trail, like a Toyota Voxy and a Toyota Noah. These are people working taxi.
But as government asks people to dig deeper into their pockets, should parliamentarians rein in the tax breaks on their own cars?
All parliamentarians receive tax exemptions on customs duty, motor vehicle tax, and VAT. It's part of their benefits package set by the Salaries Review Commission, and it's been standard practice for about 2 decades. But a TV6 News investigation found that parliamentarians have been milking these tax allowances, using them to buy multiple luxury vehicles. And when the SRC tried to clamp down on these runaway exemptions 3 years ago, parliamentarians rejected the move, preferring to keep the tax breaks unlimited. In many cases, the allowances are so hefty, they save parliamentarians half the retail price on a car.
Here's what we know from requests made through the Freedom of Information Act. While in opposition, Colm Imbert purchased 2 luxury cars between 2010 and 2015. He saved nearly $360,000 in taxes on his Mercedes-Benz in 2010. That slashed 55% of his purchase price. He paid less than $300,000 for a car worth close to $650,000. In 2015, he bought a Porsche Macan. His tax break was nearly $230,000. On those 2 luxury cars, the state conceded nearly $600,000 in tax revenue. On the other side of the aisle, the UNC's Wade Mark bought 3 Toyota Prados in the 5 years he served as Speaker of the House. On each Prado, he got a tax exemption of over $300,000. Every tax exemption cut the car's purchase price in half. In 5 years, the state had to waive $1.04 million on Mr. Mark's 3 luxury cars. The PNM's Faris Al-Rawi bought 3 Porsche Cayennes in 5 years. On the first, purchased in 2010, tax exemptions saved Mr. Al-Rawi $409,000. That's 50% off the cost of the Porsche. 3 years later, he bought another Porsche Cayenne. It would have cost nearly $900,000, but Mr. Al-Rawi got nearly half off in tax exemptions. On all 3 Porsches, Mr. Al-Rawi saved $1.3 million in taxes. Former UNC MP Nizam Bash bought 3 Toyota Prados. Each time he enjoyed a tax exemption of over $250,000. In all, he saved nearly $800,000 in taxes. Independent senators also enjoyed the exemptions. Former Independent Senator Subhash Ramkalawan bought 2 BMWs in 2 years. The state had to forego more than $750,000 in taxes on those 2 cars.
In a year-long investigation, TV6 News sent a suite of Freedom of Information requests to pinpoint the value of these motor vehicle tax exemptions for parliamentarians. We sent requests to the Office of the Parliament, which pays parliamentarians who are not in cabinet, to the Ministry of Finance, which administers allowances for cabinet ministers, and to the individual ministries themselves. Most ministries said that the information was personal and therefore private. Others redirected us to the Finance Ministry, and ultimately the Finance Ministry said that the information was too private to be shared. But a few offices did interpret the Freedom of Information Act very differently, and they granted us access to the information.
The Parliament gave us information on anyone who was not a cabinet minister from 2006 to 2015. The Ministry of Public Utilities, the Ministry of Sport, and the Ministry of Planning also released documents on ministers' car purchases. In that 9-year period, 86 parliamentarians bought 113 cars using their tax breaks. Those exemptions cost the state nearly $30 million in revenue. That works out to $275,000 a month, or $3.3 million a year. And that could be a conservative estimate, since many ministries denied our request for information. From the data, though, it's clear that parliamentarians have an overwhelming preference for luxury vehicles with large engines, not the smaller, fuel-efficient cars Minister Imbert hopes the public will buy. Prados are the car of choice, at least 29 of them getting tax allowances in the last 9 years. European luxury brands BMW and Mercedes-Benz were equally popular, with Porsche and Audi the third most commonly purchased. In 2016, Cabinet took a voluntary step. They decided not to take state loans to buy high-end personal vehicles because of the country's economic challenges. But while state loans must be repaid, tax breaks are a revenue write-off for the state. Cabinet's 2016 agreement put no limit on the value of the tax breaks for a parliamentarian's car.
So this was your BMW in 2015.
Yeah. We showed parliamentarians our information and asked if they think the challenging economy makes it the right time to cut down on their unlimited exemptions.
And the position is, what are you buying a vehicle for? When you buy a vehicle, you're actually meant to be using it in your constituency, in your private affairs, etc. Those of us who are elected members of parliament are on the road constantly.
But did you need 2 more after the first one to be able to do your work? Because you bought 3 in 5 years, and it wasn't 3 Hondas, it was 3 Porsches.
And it's less than the cost of a Toyota. So what's the point? My choice as an individual as to what I buy is my choice. I can tell you that as a public servant now in government, I earn drastically less than I did in private practice.
I don't think it's proper to look only at the vehicle. One should look at the complete remuneration package of members of parliament. Contrary to how some may look and how some may dress, you really don't make a lot of money. I don't know that members of parliament, as a member of parliament, make a lot of money that way. This is not corporate leadership. This is not professional, the highest level of professional work and so on. You can't compare members of parliament to specialized doctors, lawyers, insurance agents. One of the few perks that an MP gets. We have to dig into our pockets every month. We have to dig into our salaries every month to give money to churches, mosques, mandirs, every carnival group. I have to go up to the chamber.
People to make the sacrifice, though. Shouldn't you take the leadership part beyond the $2,000 salary sacrifice? These values are much higher than $2,000 a month. I think you could agree there that these tax breaks are not breaks that people get. They can't afford, and it slashes half the price on.
Well, we will have to look at it through the whole public service, because PSs also get tax breaks. Traveling officers.
Back in 2014, the SRC tried to cap those tax breaks, but parliamentarians on both sides of the aisle resisted the move. We'll tell you more about that in part 2 tomorrow. Fane Richards, TV6 News. The 4 short months the UNC had Brent Sancho in the Senate. In that time, just before the 2015 election, Brent Sancho used his parliamentarian status to buy a tax-free car. He chose a $657,000 Audi Q7. Thanks to his tax savings, he paid nearly half the price. In September 2015, Torel Shrikesoon became an independent senator. In the 3 months before the year ended, Senator Shrikesoon decided he wanted a tax-free car. The price tag on his BMW was $1.2 million. He saved nearly $600,000 in taxes. The Salaries Review Commission has long allowed many categories of public officers, including all parliamentarians, to buy personal vehicles without paying tax.
2 Benzes in 2 years. Did you buy any other cars after that?
Yes, a Honda Accord.
Okay, so 3 cars in 5-6 6 years?
Because you are entitled to one car
Every 2 years.
every 2 years.
But with at least $29 million in tax forsaken on at least 113 cars in a 9-year span, the SRC said the tax breaks are out of control. In its 98th report in 2014, the SRC said the motor vehicle allowance given to many office holders has become extremely generous. It added, the result is that it is possible for the holders of certain offices to enjoy exemptions from duty and taxes and customs duty in particular, totaling several $100,000 on a single vehicle. The SRC tried to rein in the runaway tax breaks by recommending caps. For parliamentarians, the total exemption limit was a suggested $173,000 per car. Parliamentarians wouldn't stand for it. The Express reported back in 2014 that parliamentarians from both parties criticized the recommendation, saying it would cut back on what they considered an already inadequate compensation package. The report also recommended higher salaries for non-cabinet MPs. None of the report was ever implemented. Now in 2017, government is asking corporations, banks, and car buyers to pay higher taxes to make up revenue. They've said TNT should adopt its own austerity measures before the IMF imposes them. Should parliamentarians adopt the SRC's recommendation and cap tax breaks they use to buy luxury cars?
I think the question is,
What about
when
people
we're
who
asking
don't buy
people to
luxury?
make sacrifices, why not put limits on the exemption?
Well, that is a matter for the SRC. So let the SRC deal with
They
it.
did recommend it in 2014.
And we did not accept it.
Exactly. So
Right?
is it time to revisit that and accept it?
Let the SRC do its work, Fane.
But they did, and it was rejected. So should the
We also rejected anything else.
I would be very interested in looking at a revision given the economic circumstances and so on, given a revision to all terms and conditions of cabinet ministers and, might I add, members of parliament, and might I add, the office of the prime minister and the office of the president as well.
Are you saying that we are breaking the law?
No, absolutely not breaking
So
the
what
law.
is your objection to the MP purchasing a vehicle which is lawful?
Like the SRC saying they tried to raise
What is your objection
of the
to an
exemption.
MP buying a vehicle every 2 years which is law? Are
Why
we
does
breaking
it have
any
to be
laws?
a luxury vehicle to take advantage
Because
of
it
the
does not
unlimited
say,
exemption?
okay, so do you think we should say you should only buy a Mazda?
But why not make sacrifices that you're asking the population to make at this time?
MPs make sacrifices all the time. Our salaries were cut 5% last year when the Prime Minister said all MPs should give 5% of their salaries to charity. We have been doing that for 2 years now.
Is this the time now, considering what people are being asked to do, pay higher taxes, dig deeper, to put those limits on the allowances?
I don't know what the SRC will recommend on this occasion. No report has come forward to us as yet, and we'll see what happens.
But if it was at the Parliament's ability to reject that part of the report 3 years ago, there's no guarantee a new recommendation would be followed.
Well, I can't say. I'm not the only member of Parliament. I'm only the leader of the House.
You can have an opinion on whether you think it's time to put
I'm
caps
only the
on it.
leader of the House.
The salary of a parliamentarian is not high. I mean, I'll be quite frank with you. The total amount that you get after taxes is about $13,000. I've been quite frank with you. A minister gets about $50,000 when you add all the allowances that are available. But compared to the fact that you have people who have no income at all because they have no jobs, or people who have jobs on whom now you're going to have a situation in which you're going to have less disposable income.
They may deem the salary inadequate, but the SRC says the transportation portion of a parliamentarian's benefits package is virtually unmatched in the entire Commonwealth. The SRC said in its 80th report that most other Commonwealth countries do not give parliamentarians a tax exemption on personal vehicles and a vehicle loan from the state and a transportation allowance. It's usually one or the other. The SRC concluded it appears that Trinidad and Tobago is unique in its provisions for transportation benefits. Then there's the question of what happens to these tax-free vehicles.
How many cars have you bought in the last 10 years or so using these exemptions?
Well, I mean, I didn't research it before meeting you.
I'm
but
sure you
I'm
know
sure
your
about 5, I think.
About 5.
Yeah.
What have you done with all of them? Have you kept all? Have you transferred ownership, given them to family?
I've kept a few vehicles, as you know, in this country. As soon as 2 years or 3 years pass, and there's a reality, you see, as 2 year, 3 year pass with high-end vehicle, they start getting sick. And
really, high-end vehicles get sick so soon?
Yeah.
Most people are forced to keep their vehicles for 5, 7, 8
No, I know,
years.
and before I was a member of Parliament, I'll let you know, I kept a vehicle for 8 years.
But is there a thriving trade among parliamentarians where they are transferring ownership of these vehicles to friends and family and then turning around and getting another one with the exemptions?
I will not know of that, but what I can tell you,
know you're in Parliament, you have
but what I
colleagues.
can tell you is that we get rid of cars also, because do you know how much it is to fix and repair a BMW or a Porsche or so on? It's an enormous amount of money.
In 2013, The Express reported that former Attorney General Anand Ramlogan sold his Range Rover to a high-profile businessman and didn't transfer official ownership of the car right away. Our Freedom of Information request asked for details on the transfer history of tax-free vehicles bought by parliamentarians. The Ministry of Finance and the Parliament said the information was not stored at their offices. We sent a request to the licensing office and we're awaiting their response. Fane Richards, TV6 News.